My name is Michael Hayes. I'm 36 years old, and I'm the co-founder of a biotechnology company based in Miami, Florida. The company is valued at over $2 billion. Every single cent I've made came from the ground up, late nights in the lab, research that almost bankrupted me twice, and gambles that could have destroyed everything I'd built. But they didn't. They paid off. I've been married for 5 years to Olivia Wells. She's the only daughter of Eleanor Wells, a woman with deep political and social connections throughout Florida. Old money, old influence, the kind of family that opens doors with a phone call. When I met Olivia, I thought I'd found my partner, someone who understood ambition, someone who could handle the pressure of building an empire from scratch. I still remember the way she'd listen when I talked about my work, asking questions that made me think she actually cared about more than just the lifestyle it provided. I was wrong. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new, unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. It happened on a Friday afternoon in late September 2024. Olivia had insisted we spend the weekend on her family's yacht, anchored off Key Largo. I'd been working 16-hour days for months, finalizing a merger that would triple our market position. She said I needed to relax, said the ocean would clear my head. I didn't argue, maybe I should have. We left the marina around noon. The weather was perfect, clear skies, light breeze, water like glass. Eleanor came along, which wasn't unusual. She owned the yacht. She often joined us on these trips, always making passive comments about my work ethic, my background, my limitations. I'd learned to tune her out. That evening, just before sunset, Olivia asked me to come up to the deck. She wanted to watch the sun go down together. It sounded romantic. It sounded normal. I followed her up the narrow stairs, past the galley, out into the open air. The horizon was burning orange and red. Beautiful. I walked to the railing and leaned forward, taking in the view. And that's when I felt her hands on my back. Not a touch. A shove. Hard. Deliberate. I went over the side before I could even process what was happening. The fall felt like it lasted forever. When I hit the water, the cold drove the air from my lungs. I surfaced, gasping, disoriented. I looked up just in time to see the yacht pulling away. Slowly. Deliberately. Olivia and Eleanor stood at the stern, watching. Neither moved to help. Neither screamed. They just stood there side by side, staring at me like I was already a memory. In that moment, everything became clear. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake. They had planned this. They wanted me dead. I treaded water for what felt like hours, though it was probably closer to 40 minutes. My arms burned. My legs cramped. I started to wonder if I'd actually make it. Then I saw the lights. A small fishing boat, heading back toward the marina. I waved my arms, shouted until my throat was raw. They saw me. They pulled me aboard. The captain, a guy named Luis, wrapped me in a blanket and asked what happened. I told him my boat had engine trouble, and I'd fallen overboard trying to fix it. He didn't press, just radioed the Coast Guard and got me back to shore. Once I was on dry land, I made a decision. No one could know I'd survived. Not yet. If Olivia and Eleanor thought I was dead, they'd get careless. They'd make mistakes. And I'd be there to document every single one. I called my criminal defense attorney, Gregory Shaw, from a burner phone. Then I called Patricia Monroe, my head of security and a former FBI agent. I told them what happened. I told them what I needed. Full surveillance, financial forensics, communications monitoring. Everything legal, everything documented, everything airtight. Patricia got to work immediately. Within 72 hours, she'd uncovered the first red flag. $15 million in suspicious wire transfers, routed through shell companies registered in the Cayman Islands. All tied back to Eleanor. Gregory started building the case, quietly, methodically. He contacted the Department of Justice. He contacted the FBI. He made sure every step was by the book. Meanwhile, Olivia and Eleanor were busy playing the grieving widow and mother-in-law. They held a memorial service. They gave interviews. Olivia cried on camera, talking about how much she missed me. It was a hell of a performance. But behind the scenes, they were already moving assets, filing insurance claims, and preparing to take full control of my company. They thought they'd won. They thought I was gone. They had no idea I was watching. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. In the months leading up to that weekend, Olivia had started asking strange questions. Questions about trusts, about life insurance policies, about succession rights and estate planning. At the time, I thought she was just being practical, maybe even thoughtful, planning for our future together. I was an idiot. There were other things too. Small withdrawals from our joint accounts. Nothing massive, a few thousand here, 5,000 there. Amounts small enough that I wouldn't notice unless I was looking. But they added up. Over 6 months, nearly $80,000 had disappeared. When I asked about it, Olivia said it was for charity galas and family expenses. I believed her because I wanted to. Eleanor had never liked me. That much was obvious from day one. She'd made comments at dinner parties about self-made men and their lack of refinement. She'd questioned my education, my family background, even the legitimacy of my patents. To her, I was an outsider, someone who didn't belong in her daughter's world, someone disposable. What I didn't know was that she'd been grooming Olivia for years, teaching her how to hide assets, how to create shell corporations, how to manipulate legal documents. Eleanor had done it before. When her own husband died in 2017, she'd systematically drained his estate before the other heirs could contest the will. By the time they realized what happened, the money was gone. Offshore. Untouchable. She was doing the same thing to me. But this time, she had help. Patricia worked fast. Within the first few weeks, she'd identified 12 separate corporate entities, all registered in the Cayman Islands and the British Virgin Islands. The ownership structures were deliberately convoluted, designed to obscure the money trail. But Patricia had spent 15 years with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. She knew how to follow the breadcrumbs. Her team even used blockchain verification tools to trace the offshore transfers, confirming every connection back to Eleanor. Each entity had been created within the last 18 months. Each had received wire transfers from accounts I controlled, transfers I'd never authorized. My signature was on the documents. Forged, obviously, but good enough to pass initial scrutiny. Someone had been planning this for a long time. Gregory, meanwhile, was building the legal framework for what came next. He contacted an assistant U.S. attorney named David Chen, someone he'd worked with on white-collar cases before. Chen was interested, very interested. Federal prosecutors love cases with clean paper trails and cooperative witnesses, and I was about to give him both. But we had to be patient. If we moved too fast, Olivia and Eleanor could destroy evidence, transfer remaining assets, or flee the country. We needed them to feel safe, secure, convinced that their plan had worked. So I stayed dead. I rented a small apartment in Coral Gables under a fake name. Patricia arranged it through a trusted contact, someone who understood the need for discretion. Cash only, no credit cards, no phone records, nothing traceable. Patricia brought me groceries. Gregory brought me legal documents to review. For 3 weeks, I lived like a ghost in my own city, watching surveillance footage and reading financial reports while my wife planned my funeral. The memorial service was held at a private estate in Coconut Grove. 200 guests. Politicians, business leaders, philanthropists. Olivia wore black Chanel and cried at all the right moments. Eleanor stood beside her, stoic and composed, accepting condolences with practiced grace. I watched it all on a live stream, sitting in my empty apartment with a bottle of bourbon I never opened. It was surreal. Seeing people I'd known for years, people I'd done business with, eulogizing me while the woman I'd married smiled through crocodile tears. The real kicker came during the reception. Patricia had placed a surveillance operative among the catering staff, a former FBI analyst who could blend into any environment. She wore a wire, and she got close enough to Eleanor and Olivia to record their conversation in the library. "How long before we can access the accounts?" Olivia asked. "Give it another week," Eleanor replied. "Let the sympathy settle. Then we file the death certificate and move forward with probate." His business partners won't contest it. They're already asking about buyout options. And the insurance. $5 million from the personal policy, another 20 from the key man coverage. It'll take 60 days to process, but it's a formality. No body means accidental death. Accidental death means full payout. There was a pause. Then Olivia spoke again, her voice quieter but clear. Do you think anyone suspects? Suspects what? Eleanor said. That your husband was reckless enough to fall off a boat in open water? Please. Michael was obsessed with his company. Everyone knows he barely slept. It's not a stretch to think he was careless. Besides, we were the only ones there, and were grieving. Who questions the grieving widow? I listened to that recording a dozen times. Each time I felt the same cold clarity. This wasn't just about money. This was about control, about power, about two women who believed they were untouchable. They were wrong. By early November 2024, Patricia had traced every dollar. $15 million in wire transfers, another $8 million in forged loan agreements, 3 offshore accounts in my name that I'd never opened, and a life insurance policy I didn't know existed, with Olivia as the sole beneficiary. Gregory presented everything to David Chen and the FBI. They moved fast. Federal warrants were issued for financial records, email accounts, phone logs, and physical searches of both Eleanor's estate and the Coral Gables condo Olivia and I had shared. The execution was surgical. No media leaks, no advance warning, just a coordinated operation across multiple jurisdictions, all happening simultaneously at 6 in the morning on a Tuesday in late October 2024. I wasn't there to see it, but Patricia was. She called me as it happened, describing the scene in real time. FBI agents in windbreakers, federal marshals securing the perimeter, Olivia being led out in handcuffs still in her silk pajamas, screaming about her lawyers. Eleanor tried to run, made it as far as the driveway before they stopped her. She didn't scream, she didn't cry. She just glared at the agents like they were beneath her, like this was all some terrible mistake that would be corrected by the end of the day. It wasn't. Both were charged with wire fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, forgery, and money laundering. Federal charges, no bail, no easy way out. And that's when I came back from the dead. I walked into the federal courthouse in downtown Miami on a Wednesday morning, exactly 37 days after Olivia pushed me off that yacht. The media was already there, cameras lined up outside, reporters shouting questions at anyone who looked remotely official. They didn't recognize me at first. I'd lost weight, grown a beard, wore clothes I'd never normally wear, jeans, a plain button-down, sunglasses. But when I took those sunglasses off at the security checkpoint, someone noticed. Then everyone noticed. Within minutes, the footage was everywhere. Biotech billionaire alive after alleged murder plot. Miami man returns from the dead to face wife in court. The headlines wrote themselves. I gave no interviews, made no statements. Just walked into that courthouse, met with David Chen and his team, and prepared to testify. Eleanor's lawyers tried everything. They filed motions to suppress evidence. They argued entrapment. They claimed the surveillance was illegal, that the recordings were inadmissible, that the whole case was built on circumstantial evidence. It didn't work. Gregory and Chen had been meticulous. Every warrant was clean. Every piece of evidence was properly obtained. Every step was documented. The arraignment was brief. Eleanor stood before the judge in an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back, no makeup, looking 20 years older than the woman who'd watched me drown. Her lawyer entered a plea of not guilty. The judge denied bail, flight risk, danger to witnesses, the usual reasons. Olivia's arraignment was messier. She cried. She claimed she'd been manipulated by her mother, said she didn't know about the financial fraud, said the push on the yacht was an accident, that she'd panicked when I fell and didn't know what to do. Her lawyer painted her as a victim, a young woman under the control of a domineering parent. It might have worked, except for the recordings, and the emails, and the text messages. Patricia had recovered everything. Months of communication between Olivia and Eleanor, discussing the plan in detail, how to forge documents, how to transfer assets, how to make my death look accidental. There was even a message from Olivia, sent 2 weeks before the yacht trip, that read, "He trusts me completely. This will be easier than we thought." The prosecutor read that message aloud in court. Olivia's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. The damage was done. Over the next few months, the investigation expanded. The FBI's forensic accountants dug deeper into Eleanor's finances and found a pattern going back decades. She'd been running scams since the early 2000s, using her late husband's connections to create fake investment opportunities, siphoning money from family trusts, filing fraudulent insurance claims. She'd stolen from her own relatives, from business partners, from charities. When her husband died in 2017, she'd manipulated the estate to cut out his children from his first marriage, forged his signature on a revised will, transferred properties into her name weeks before his death. The other heirs had suspected something, but they'd lacked the resources to fight someone with Eleanor's legal team and political connections. They'd eventually settled for pennies on the dollar just to avoid years of litigation. Now, with federal investigators involved, those old cases were being reopened. Civil suits turned into criminal investigations. What started as an attempted murder charge against me turned into one of the largest financial fraud cases in Florida's history. Eleanor's political friends vanished. The people who'd taken her calls, attended her fundraisers, and endorsed her causes, suddenly they had no comment, no memory of close associations, no record of contributions. She'd spent years building influence, and it collapsed in days. Olivia, meanwhile, was looking at the reality of her situation. Her mother was going down, hard, and if she stuck to her story, she'd go down with her. Federal prosecutors don't lose cases like this. Not with this much evidence. By December 2024, her lawyer came to Gregory with a proposal. Olivia would cooperate fully. She'd testify against Eleanor. She'd provide documentation of every transaction, every forged signature, every conversation where her mother had outlined the plan. In exchange, she wanted a plea deal, reduced charges, minimal prison time. Gregory brought the offer to me, asked what I thought. I told him to let David Chen decide. I wasn't interested in revenge. I was interested in justice. If Olivia's testimony could put Eleanor away for the rest of her life, then I'd accept the deal. Chen negotiated hard. Olivia would plead guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud and obstruction of justice. The attempted murder charge would be dropped. She'd face 5 to 7 years in federal prison, with eligibility for parole after 3. She'd also forfeit any claim to my assets, my company, or any inheritance from her mother's estate. She took it. 2 weeks later, she sat in a deposition room for 11 hours and told them everything. How Eleanor had approached her 3 years ago with the idea. How they'd slowly built the infrastructure, the shell companies, the forged documents, the offshore accounts. How Eleanor had convinced her that I was the obstacle to their financial security, that I'd never give Olivia the life she deserved, that I was selfish, controlling, unworthy. Olivia cried through most of it, said she'd been brainwashed, said she'd loved me once, but her mother had poisoned her mind. Maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't. It didn't matter. She'd made her choices. Now she'd live with them. Eleanor's trial began in January 2025, less than 3 months after her arrest. It lasted 6 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming: financial records, recorded conversations, testimony from Olivia, testimony from forensic accountants, testimony from the fishing boat captain who'd rescued me, testimony from Patricia, who walked the jury through every step of the investigation. I testified on day 12. The defense attorney tried to make me look vindictive, asked if I was motivated by anger, by a desire for revenge. I told him the truth. I was motivated by survival, by the need to protect what I'd built, by the belief that people who try to murder you for money should face consequences. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. They found Eleanor guilty on all counts: wire fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, obstruction of justice, tax evasion, forgery. The judge sentenced her to 32 years in federal prison, No parole eligibility for 25 years. At her age, it was a life sentence. Eleanor didn't react, just stared straight ahead, expressionless as the bailiffs led her away. Olivia was sentenced 3 weeks later, 6 years in federal prison, eligible for parole after 3 with good behavior. She'd be 41 when she got out. Her life as she'd known it was over. As for me, I walked out of that courthouse and went back to work. The company was a mess when I returned, not because of mismanagement. My business partners had kept things running, but because of the uncertainty. Investors were spooked. Clients were hesitant. The media circus hadn't helped. Every day brought new headlines, new speculation, new questions about the future of the company. I called an emergency board meeting my first week back. Brought in an independent auditing firm. Replaced the entire financial oversight team. Implemented new protocols for wire transfers, contract signatures, and corporate governance. I made it clear that what happened to me would never happen to anyone else in this organization. The audit took 3 months. They found more irregularities, nothing catastrophic, but enough to show that Eleanor and Olivia had been laying groundwork for years. Small contract modifications, subtle changes to insurance policies, alterations to beneficiary designations, all designed to give them leverage when the time came. We corrected everything, tightened every control, built redundancies into every system. I created a corporate integrity fund with $10 million in it, dedicated to preventing fraud and ensuring ethical business practices. Made it public, made it permanent. Wall Street noticed. Within 6 months, our stock price had recovered, and by the end of the year, we'd exceeded our pre-incident valuation. Turns out investors like companies that take fraud seriously. What I did focus on was the work. We had 3 drugs in clinical trials. 2 showed promising results. 1, a treatment for a rare autoimmune disorder, received FDA approval in March 2025. It was a game changer for patients who'd had no other options. That mattered more to me than any headline ever could. Patricia stayed on as head of security. She'd proven herself beyond any doubt, and I trusted her completely. Gregory remained my attorney, though thankfully I didn't need his criminal defense expertise anymore. Just the usual corporate legal work. I sold the condo in Coral Gables. Too many memories, too much history. Bought a smaller place in Brickell, something modern and impersonal. A place that was just a place, nothing more. The yacht was sold too, worth about $1.2 million. I wanted nothing to do with it. Donated the entire proceeds to a marine conservation charity. Seemed appropriate. I dated occasionally, but nothing serious. Trust doesn't come easy after something like this. I'd built my life with someone who tried to kill me. That leaves scars. I wasn't ready to pretend otherwise. Eleanor was in prison. Olivia was in prison. Their reputations were destroyed. Their assets were gone. Their futures were forfeit. The system had worked. That was enough. In late 2025, I received a letter from Olivia. It was forwarded through her attorney. She'd been in federal prison for 9 months by then. The letter was 4 pages long, handwritten, full of apologies and explanations. She said she understood if I never forgave her. Said she thought about that day on the yacht constantly. Said she wished she could take it back. I read it once. Then I threw it away. Not out of cruelty. Not out of spite. Simply because there was nothing to say. No response that would change anything. No words that would undo what she'd done. For a moment I wondered if she ever truly loved me, or if she only loved the life I gave her. Forgiveness isn't something you give because someone asks for it. It's something you give yourself when you're ready to stop carrying the weight of someone else's choices. I wasn't there yet. Maybe I never would be. And that was okay. What I learned from all of this is simple. People show you who they are. Sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. The trick is paying attention. I'd ignored the signs with Olivia because I wanted to believe in something that wasn't real. I'd trusted someone who saw me as an asset to be acquired, then liquidated when convenient. I won't make that mistake again. The business world is full of people who want what you've built. Some will work alongside you to create their own success. Others will try to take yours. The difference isn't always obvious. But if you watch closely, if you pay attention to the small inconsistencies, the questions that don't quite fit, the explanations that sound rehearsed, you'll see it. Eleanor and Olivia thought they were smarter than me, thought they could plan the perfect crime. But they forgot one fundamental truth. You can't control everything. You can't predict every variable. And when you build a plan on deception, eventually the weight of your own lies will crush you. I didn't destroy them. They destroyed themselves. I just made sure the evidence was documented. 9 months after the sentencing, the company is stronger than ever. We've launched 4 new drugs, expanded into 12 new markets, hired 300 employees. We're doing real work, helping real people, making a difference. I obsess over details. I push myself harder than I probably should, but I do it for me now, not for anyone else, not to prove anything, just because it's what I'm good at, and because it matters. That's the real victory, not the courtroom verdicts, not the sentences, not even the money I recovered. The victory is that I'm still here, still building, still moving forward. Eleanor tried to erase me. Instead, she erased herself. Olivia tried to take everything I'd worked for. Instead, she lost everything she'd ever had. And me? I'm exactly where I was before, except now I know what I'm capable of when survival is the only option. I know how to be patient, how to be strategic, how to let the evidence speak for itself. I don't recommend the experience, but if it happens to you, if someone you trust betrays you in the worst possible way, remember this. You don't need to shout. You don't need to fight. You just need to be smarter, quieter, more methodical. Let them think they've won. Let them celebrate. Let them get comfortable. Then let the truth do what it does best. Destroy them. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.